negotiations with the Liberal Democrats this evening. She joins us now. Do you think you've done enough tonight to get the Liberal Democrats to sign up?
Well, it's not about getting the Liberal Democrats to sign up. It's about saying, bearing in mind the public haven't voted for any one party to have an overall majority and go straight into majority government, what is the best thing in the public interest for us to do to make sure that we play our part to have a stable and secure government?
And if that means ditching your manifesto commitment to a referendum on electoral reform as an AV, you've just done it. You've just ditched it and you've told the Liberal Democrats you'll go one better than the Tories and you'll produce a bill.
Well, obviously, in discussions, if you're going to have a partnership arrangement rather than just delivery of your own manifesto, you have to compromise and discuss things. But I do think that this suggestion is really a Conservative scare story. The idea that somehow we've gone into negotiations and have immediately ditched the idea that there would be a referendum, and without actually wanting to disclose what's been discussed, perhaps I could just draw people's attention back to what our manifesto said, which was that we support the idea of changing the voting system to an AV, but we think it should not happen without a referendum.
And you stand by that?
But we obviously have to discuss these things not only with the Liberal Democrats, but with also the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party and the Parliamentary Labour Party. But what we've got to do is, sooner rather than later, we need a government, a new government, to take the country forward.
Was the continuation of Gordon Brown in Downing Street a deal breaker?
Well, I think Gordon took the view that he needed to take some responsibility for the election result, that actually it would pave the way more easily to a partnership agreement if he stepped down.
And he was never going to be able to work with Nick Clegg?
I don't think that's the point. I think he felt it was in the public interest for him to step aside, and I think we should pay credit to him for doing that.
The Liberal Democrats seem to suggest it was a deal breaker.
Well, that might be their view about what they wanted to do by way of an agreement, but that's neither here nor there, because before the discussions have even started, Gordon Brown himself has said that he's stepping aside. And
it's the best thing for the party and the country, is it, that he steps aside?
Well, yes, it is, I think, and he's made that clear, and I think we should pay credit to him for that.
Will the Liberal Democrats take any Labour leader, do you think?
Well, I think that it's not a question of the Liberal Democrats choosing the Labour leader. I think Gordon Brown stood aside.
Will he take any Labour leader?
Well, we haven't got into that question. The question of who is the Labour leader is for the NEC to actually set the timetable and the processes, and for the Labour Party to actually decide on that. But I think at the moment we're trying to form a government after a general election, and we haven't set the timetable for the leadership election yet.
Are you going to stand?
I'm deputy leader of the Labour Party, and I've got no plans to step aside from that role.
So that means you're not standing for leader?
No, I'm staying as deputy leader.
So you're not.
My plan.
I just want to be absolutely clear at this. You're not standing.
You can't run for leader at the same time as being deputy leader.
So there's no circumstance in which you will actually resign deputy leader in order to stand?
It's my plan to stay deputy leader.
In that case,
I think
will you be
supporting
supporting
best thing for stability?
David Miliband? Will you be supporting Ed Balls? Who will you support?
Well, I think to stay on as deputy, it would be invidious to actually get into backing one or another candidate. But actually, at the moment, I don't think anybody is declaring themselves as a candidate, because what we need to do is make sure that we've got a new government for Britain. And actually, that's the most immediate priority.
But you must have heard John Reid say quite categorically, this is just clinging on to power at any price. And it's undignified apart from anything else.
It's not clinging on to power. Gordon Brown has actually stepped aside.
No,
and
Labour trying to cling on to power, not Gordon Brown, clearly.
No, it's what we're saying is we're prepared to play our part, and if we can be part of a partnership government, then so be it. In the public interest, we'll do that. We recognise that we didn't win the election. That is self-evident, that's obvious, but we need to play our part as parliamentarians to form a new government.
Now, one of the key economic planks of the Liberal Democrat offer at the election was no tax for those, no income tax for those earning less than £10,000. Do you rule that out as a possible offer?
Well, we've already, over the years, increased the threshold at which you start paying tax, and obviously these sorts of issues will have to be discussed.
But that is a key policy. I'm asking you, because I'm going on to do another interview in a second. I'm asking you, do you rule out no income tax for under £10,000 a year?
Well, obviously you don't go into discussions ruling in or ruling out anything. I've said it's not a matter of principle. We obviously want to help people on lower income, and we've, over the years ourselves, lightened the burden of tax on those on lower income by raising the tax threshold.
Harriet Harman, thank you very much indeed. Now I can be joined from Westminster by Michael Gove, who's part of the other negotiating team. You've been listening carefully.